Welcome to Dyspraxic Rosie Writes, a channel where we talk about dyspraxia, chronic illness, and the writing life. Today we're going to talk about exercise. Yes, exercise. I'm not going to tell you to do some specific stretch or that you need to get anything perfect or anything like that, but instead we're going to talk about the issue of motivation. And I'm going to open up a bit about my ups and downs as a dyspraxic person in making it a source of motivation, especially while living a creative lifestyle and being someone who, when I'm really into my work, it's hard to put it down and just go out for a minute and do something else. So, all right, let's unpack that a little bit.
What you're looking at here is my workspace. Yeah, this is where all the magic happens. A big part of why I set up my space like this is because when I first started trying to work from home, I really found that I was slouching a lot. I was finding that it was a real trigger for my hypotonia. Anything around stress or excitement would mean that I would tense up a lot. I would have huge problems with back pain by the end of the day. And that's a really hard habit to break, to slouch over, to arch over to your space, and for that to just be instinctive and something you do without thinking about it. So that very much turned me into a massive ergonomics nerd. As you can see, the computer is on a slightly elevated space. I have this stand here that elevates it above the table. And I have this wireless keyboard here because that way when I sit down, I don't slouch over, but rather I have a very focused sort of place to put my body. So as you can see, I have my hand there, and that is a key part of the space too. It's that ergonomic feature. It's having that sort of shape right here on the mouse in which to place my hand, in which to have the buttons spread out. And it's things like this chair and being sat upright rather than being on a chair like this, which is much more designed for dining and entertaining guests and things like that, which is obviously not a context where you're sitting in the chair for long periods of time. As a dyspraxic person, my relationship with exercise has always been one of having to motivate myself, whether I want to or not, to move or to risk just being in a lot of pain and not sleeping that night. So that has always been the ongoing push and pull. I have a thyroid condition and I had anemia for a long time, and most recently a vitamin D deficiency, in which limits your energy and very much makes the easier move to simply be sitting in a chair and resting rather than getting up and moving. So a compromise I have often made with myself is that of an adapted version of yoga. I hate going to the studios, especially in urban areas. I find them very snobby and very much not accommodating enough to people like me. I tried going with my mom when I lived in Toronto, and I found it very difficult. But I did learn the basics when I first had trouble with back pain and worked with an occupational therapist in my adulthood. And I just learned basics. I learned basics like stretches that are useful. I went back to my days of running. I used to be a cross-country runner and do competitions and stuff, so I know a lot of basics around that. Another equally as freeing thing has been having an exercise machine in the home. I've always hated going to the gym. I've always felt very judged, and I've always felt that there was a pressure to go at somebody else's pace. And just having this here and being able to turn on headphones on at any time of day is phenomenal, although obviously that is not widely available enough to people. But I just wanted to share how much a tool like this made a huge difference. This is my elliptical, and what I showed you in the previous frame of the yoga setup is all about doing things at my own terms and putting on some music and going for a set amount of time and just not being worried about doing things the wrong way, but rather knowing the basics enough that I know what I'm doing and not feeling like anyone else is watching and like I'm on somebody else's schedule. That's why when I'm really not up for anything too fast-paced, I even go out for a walk. I found when I was recovering from my thyroid surgery, that was the best I could do. And in many ways, that was enough to benefit me. And it was enough to go outside and see the strays. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that going out and seeing the strays of Morocco has been a very hugely therapeutic and refreshing thing for me. And it's often on those walks that I find them and I regain a renewed sense of perspective on life, and I come back and everything's just fine again. I have really seen how important that is and been reminded of how important that was when I was diagnosed with a vitamin D deficiency when I last went to the doctor. And then suddenly going out in the sunshine has had an element of taking a pill, a necessity of taking a pill to feel better. And I have really realized how much that element of being out in nature really helps me produce my best work and be less likely to go into a darker state of mind and overthink something and realize that, like, yeah, I can go back to it later. I would love to hear in the comments what sort of exercise routines you have incorporated into your creative practice and your creative work. And I hope you found that helpful and it got you thinking about it. Ultimately, it's about enjoyment. Focus on the element of enjoyment and what motivates you to get out there and move in a way that feels fun and enjoyable. Even find group activities if you find that helpful, or go on your own. Yeah, as I said before, hope you found that helpful. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, like and subscribe, and happy reading, happy writing, my friends.